Hello. On this edition of Pros and Con Law, we're going to take a quick look at the 25th Amendment, why we have it, what it's for, and why is the Speaker of the House suddenly interested in it. Welcome to Pros and Con Law. Before we begin our discussion, I did want to ask you to take a moment and subscribe to this channel. You can click on the bell to receive notifications of when future episodes drop. You can also subscribe to our podcast, Pros and Con Law. If it hasn't launched on iTunes, it will be launching very soon, and on Spotify, I believe. You can also email us at prosandconlaw@gmail.com or follow us on Twitter at prosandconlaw. We previously spoke about the 25th Amendment in our episode on presidential succession. There we spoke only about the first two sections primarily, but the 25th Amendment has 4 different sections. The first section talks about what happens if the office of the presidency is vacated. In that case, the amendment makes it clear that the vice president is to become president. That's to clean up some latent ambiguity from the original Constitution as written. The second section discusses what happens if there's a vacancy in the vice presidency, and that allows the president to nominate a new person for vice president as long as Congress approves that choice. The third section discusses what happens when the president is incapacitated for some reason or unable to discharge the duties of the office. In that circumstance, the president can send a letter to the Speaker of the House and the President pro tem of the Senate to tell them that he or she is unable to discharge the duties of the office, and in that case, the vice president serves as acting president until the president's inability is concluded, at which point the president then resumes their duties. Section 4 is when it gets pretty complicated. That's when the vice president and a majority of the principal officers of the cabinet can determine that the president is unable to fulfill the duties of the office, in which case they send a letter to the Speaker of the House and the President pro tem detailing that they believe that the president can no longer fulfill those duties, at which point the vice president becomes acting president. The president can send their own letter to the Speaker of the House and the President pro tem of the Senate, indicating that the president feels that they are perfectly capable of handling the duties of the office, at which point the vice president and those cabinet officers can send yet another letter detailing that they object to the president's view of things, in which case Congress has to have the final say in the matter, and within 21 days, if 3/4 of Congress agrees with the vice president and the cabinet officers, then the vice president will continue to serve as acting president. Otherwise, the president can resume their duties. Now, one complication is that in the 25th Amendment, there is a provision that Congress may actually set up their own panel to make the determination as to whether the president is actually capable of fulfilling the duties of the office. So far, Congress has not done this. Apparently, the Speaker of the House is considering putting together a commission in order to have that duty and take that away from the cabinet officers. However, the 25th Amendment as written does seem to suggest that the vice president still must have a say in it, because it does speak specifically that it is a vice president and the majority of either the principal officers of the cabinet or of such other body as Congress may by law provide. Now, the 25th Amendment has been used on a few occasions, certainly when Spiro Agnew resigned his office of vice presidency, President Nixon appointed Gerald Ford as president, and then, of course, when Richard Nixon himself resigned, Gerald Ford then appointed Nelson Rockefeller to serve as vice president for the remainder of his term. Also, the other provisions whereby the president sends a letter to the Speaker of the House and the President pro tem of the Senate has been used 3 times, once by Ronald Reagan when he designated George H.W. Bush as acting president, and twice by George W. Bush when he designated Dick Cheney as the acting president. However, Section 4 has never been utilized, and so it's unclear if that is what the Speaker has in mind for the press conference that's happening, or if there's some other political machinations going on. Why we have it is largely in the aftermath of the Kennedy assassinations, that when Lyndon Baines Johnson became president, there was no provision for appointing a vice president, and the next two people in line for the presidency were extremely elderly and probably not 100% capable of fulfilling the duties. And so that's where we are with the 25th Amendment, why we have it, and why people are suddenly talking about it. Again, if you have any questions, please feel free to email us at prosandconlaw@gmail.com. Leave a comment below. Subscribe to the podcast on iTunes or wherever podcasts are found. And you can also follow us on Twitter at prosandconlaw and ask us questions there. Thank you very much for listening.